Hello and welcome to my second presentation. This presentation deals with the negotiation strategies and tactics of Bright. So here you can see my agenda. I will first start with the case study with a short summary of the case. Then I will go on and give you some information about Bright. I will, after that, show you a comparison of Boeing versus Airbus, and then I will start with my analysis of Bright's negotiation strategies and tactics. And lastly, I have my conclusion and references. So to start with the case study and its summary, the case is called Iberia Airlines builds a BATNA, which means best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So there are two producers of big commercial aircraft, Boeing and Airbus, and they are competing to sell their model airplanes to Iberia Airlines, which is a highly profitable Spanish carrier. It is financially very healthy to bargain heavily, and this you can, of course, see in the case. The main role is played by Dupai, who is the Iberia Airlines chief financial officer. Then we have Leahy. He is the Airbus top salesman. And then we have Bright. He is the Boeing's top salesman. And now just a short introduction to the case. So Iberia is very intractable with its pricing target, and it always says at the beginning that, or Dupai says that Airbus and Boeing's offers are too high, and thereby Airbus expects to outpace Boeing, so this deal might be a chance for both to either succeed or weaken. But due to the bad world air travel market situation, both have grown dependent on diverse airlines, engine suppliers, and aircraft financiers for confusing deals. So as the time goes by, both have to yield with the price because they have no other chance to deal in another way with Iberia Airlines, because Dupai planned from the beginning to create an aggressive competition between the both and high tension until the last minute. So this leads to very close offers of the rivals at the end of the case, at the end of the deadline. And lastly, Airbus is able to win the battle thanks to its plane's lower price and common design with the rest of Iberia's fleet. So this was just a short summary, a short introduction to the case, and now I will give some information about Bright. So as mentioned before, he's Boeing's sales chief. He joined Boeing out of college as an aerospace designer. He is described as a burly 50-year-old West Virginian, and he worked as Boeing's chief salesman also in Europe. So he kind of has a experience how it is going on in Europe, because Airbus is a European producer, and Bright has also been appointed to Boeing's top airplane salesperson in 2002. So before the analysis, here we have also a comparison of Boeing versus Airbus, which might also be very interesting. So first we can look at Boeing and its plane, the 777. It is the new Boeing plane. It is described is lighter, it holds more seats than the Airbus plane, and it burns less fuel. Its catalog price is $215 million, which is $25 million more than the Airbus plane, the A340. The Boeing plane is also known as the biggest twin-engine plane. It is able to fit 24 more seats on the Boeing, so it is known, or it is marketed as a boost revenue, because one seat can contributes to a huge to the revenue of the plane or the airline's revenue, let's say. And the plane would cost 8% less to maintain than the A340, which means huge savings over the life of a fleet. So there are several advantages of this plane. And when we look at the A340, the plane can fly a bit farther, it has more lifting power, and it is called as the longest plane ever built. It is also, just as mentioned before, it is cheaper than the Boeing plane. It has a common design with the rest of Iberia's fleet because Airbus sold Iberia more than 100 planes since 1997. So these are some facts about the planes and their conditions. And Dupuy's rule is just that whoever hits his target wins the deal. So now we have a closer look at Bright's negotiation strategies and tactics. So here, first you will always see the a short text or what Bright says in the case, and then you can see how I interpreted this. So first to start with, when Dupuy told Bright that Iberia actually wanted 2 suppliers and not only Airbus, Bright answered, "You're running out of ways to show us." So, as mentioned before, he had worked as Boeing's chief salesman in Europe, and he had heard similar lines from customers who eventually bought Airbus planes. So he wondered, are we being brought in as a stalking horse? So we can see that he is very cautious and skeptical because of his past experiences and his awareness of the risk of a pointless competition. Yet he also directly stresses that Iberia has to show more willingness and that they are serious about their statement that they want 2 suppliers, not only Airbus, and that they want to grow in this way. So he also tries to generate little pressure because he directly tells him that they have to show that they really want this deal, or to come together. And he also shows that he is actually very interested because it might be the last chance to win back Iberia. But Airbus still has the advantage of reaching a simpler and cheaper all Airbus fleet. So it might get very difficult for Boeing, but he also shows some interest for the deal. So if we look at the negotiations as they began, Bright pitched the Boeing 777 directly as a revenue machine. So he just made sure that his plane could earn Iberia about $8,000 more per flight than the Airbus plane because it can hold more seats and is cheaper to operate. And however, he knew the new Airbus would slot easily into Iberia's fleet, but he also felt that Dupay's target price undervalued his plane. So here you can see that he directly begins with the most important point for Iberia, with the profit, with the money. So he just talks about the potential revenue of the plane and emphasizes how profitable is it for the airline. And thereby he prefers to use the word revenue machine to emphasize that the plane would continuously produce high turnover. And he also compares his plane with the Airbus plane in favor of Boeing, of course, by directly saying these are my advantages and therefore you should buy my plane. So at Boeing, Bright was eager to soften Iberia's pricing target, of course, and he sent his account managers several times to pitch the plane, to protest that Iberia didn't appreciate the revenue potential of his plane, and he also desperately wanted to avoid competing just on the price after that. So he just tried to push the operating cost and the comfort of the plane. Hereby he shows that he is really ambitious, and he wants just to focus on reducing the pricing demand by highlighting more the operating costs and the comfort. And therefore he also engages other people, so in this case his account manager, which is on the one side it is a support for him, but on the other side it might also maybe perceived as a sign of weakness, because he is not just directly in it. He just sends some people to pitch the plane and to make the negotiations, which might also be perceived worse than more advantageous. But yeah, he wants to make sure that his plane has a high revenue potential, but protesting that Iberia does not appreciate it may also appears a little bit unprofessional, and as if he would accuse them of being careless or ignorant, or let's say disregardful, because just protesting is very negative, and he is doing something against the company, but he might have done more smarter or apply smarter strategies. For example, he should better have developed effective strategies to convince Iberia more of the plane's high revenue potential, rather than protesting against it or saying that they are not appreciating the plane or its revenue potential. So he might just prove it with some facts or something like that. So it was a bit negative on this side, and not an advantage in my opinion. But then the Boeing team went to Dupay's office with three bound selling documents. So as I said, with some data after having the protest phase. So one of the documents contained that Boeing's offer of Boeing, titled "Imagine the Possibilities, Iberia's 777 Fleet," and Bright knows that Dupay is kind of a numbers guy, so he looks closely to facts. So the Boeing team peppered him with the data where it showed, for example, that the passengers would choose Iberia because they prefer the plane or because the plane is more comfortable. And thereby he tries to make it as attractive as possible. And it was clever to offer him data in favor of Boeing because he knows that Dupuy's preference of numbers might be an advantage for them. And all of these shows that he wants to close the deal as fast as possible. Then, in the case, over a long lunch, Dupuy reiterated his price target, so he didn't reduce it. And then Bright got a little bit aggressive. He said that if that's your number, let's give this up. However, the talks continued cordially, but the man left doubtful they could close the gap. So firstly, he gives a direct and clear message that he does not want to reduce his price, and it cannot work if the price target of Dupuy remains the same. And then he tends to be provocative, so he tries to put some pressure to reduce the price target of Dupuy, of Iberia. But it is yet a little dangerous because it might be understood that he is quickly giving up. So he does not really do much about it or care much about it, which might also be negative for his side. And of course, as we could see, it also led to dissatisfaction of both parties. So this was also not so clever of Bright, but we will see. So as the time went by, Bright got also very frustrated. In the first week of January, Dupuy proposed visiting Seattle, where Boeing builds passenger planes, and there Bright just answered if Iberia was unwilling to budge, there was little reason to come. But after that, Dupuy still said he would make the 14-hour journey, and Bright was very encouraged. So hereby, he is again very provocative and a little rejecting as well as desperate. However, Dupuy didn't said that he wouldn't make it, so he still said that he will come, that he is willing to come, and that led to a high motivation of Bright, and of course he hoped for a decrease of the price target because he said directly that he doesn't want to deal with or stop if the price was not adequate for him. And but we will see when we look at the dinner of both. The CEO of Boeing also joined the dinner of the commercial plane division. The CEO urged Bright and his team to find a way to close the gap. So, therefore, Boeing salesman offered a new proposal, which included a slightly lower price. They improved the financing and made better terms on spare parts, crew training, and also the maintenance support from General Electric. And Bright felt Iberia was relenting a bit on price and that Dupuy wanted also to find a way to do the deal. So he was really convinced that they might come together now, And due to the pressure of his boss, he had to offer such a proposal, although at the beginning he was really convinced and intractable that the Boeing plane was undervalued by Iberia, but now he had to do this. Yeah, and if that worked, I will show you. But Airbus also was very confident, and they tried to close the gap. So both sales teams called Dupai several times daily and asked for concessions, but he still did not budge. Yeah, but Bright was still very motivated and energized by the Seattle meetings, so he pushed his team to do whatever they have to do just to win the battle. And they worked around the clock, and he also phoned Dupai daily from Seattle. And yeah, at the very end, Boeing had cut its price by more than 10%, and now his plane was less than 3% above Dupai's target. And for Bright, it was so close that he just asked for a gesture of compromise from Iberia. So, yeah, as mentioned, we can see that he is highly motivated and eager to win the competition. And he also consciously called Dupai daily at the very same time, because for Dupai, it was in the evening, like at 6 p.m. And maybe he used this strategy to be the last person that Dupai would remember at the end of the day, and to have him in his head instead of Leahy. And yeah, so he just tried everything to close the deal, and he also got very close to the target. So it was a very aggressive move from him, or from Boeing's side. And then Bright offered to trim Boeing's price further if Iberia could guarantee that Boeing would win the deal, but Dupai replied that he just can't control Fargert, which was the CEO of Airbus and the Airbus president. Yeah, and then Bright just made the price cut also without the concession, so he just tried a further advantageous offer, but it was not successful, and he still decided to cut the price. He is just very ambitious, but it all just didn't work, and Airbus won the battle because of the lower price and its common design. And so Bright was, yeah, at the end not successful in this way. And after knowing that Airbus just won the battle, Boeing posted on its website a statement where they criticized Iberia's choice as the easiest decision. And Bright also said that he simply couldn't hit Dupai's numbers and do good business. So that shows that he is really frustrated, and that in his view, he just made such good offers and it still didn't work. So yeah, he just criticized Iberia to harm maybe the image of the company, and that they would just not take challenges or to grow with other suppliers, that they just decided easily. So now we have the conclusion. We could see that although being skeptical at the beginning, Bright was very ambitious the whole time. He got very eager to win the competition, and at the beginning he mostly used the tactic to threaten with breaking up the dealing process if the price target remains the same, and thereby he was very intractable, but this persistence decreased over time, also mostly because of his CEO, or the pressure of his CEO, so that he had to yield and provide better offers in favor of Iberia Airlines. And yeah, thereby he acted very aggressively, but it didn't work because maybe he should do it, or he should have done it at the beginning. So maybe he might have won the competition if he acted more motivated, just from the start, bringing up better offers, and not just the feeling of, okay, I will give up if you cannot reduce your price target. So he should better develop more strategies, more effective strategies, and just think of how he may be able to convince Dupai with diverse facts of the plane, or more data, or more showing the revenue potential. So he just had to take action earlier than Airbus, because Airbus had an advantage at the beginning, because they sold so many planes to Iberia Airlines. So it was a very good chance for Boeing, but yeah, Bright didn't succeed. And yeah, so that's it. Here are my references. It's the case study. And yeah, so I wanted to thank you for listening, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the presentation.